Today we're going to be looking at one of the latest watches of a company called Richard Le Grand. They are based, if I'm not mistaken, in Singapore, and they made one of my favorite watches from any micro brand in 2018. It was the Odyssey Mark II. The reason I liked that watch so much was because it offered so much value for the money you were paying, with that ceramic bezel, that sunburst dial, a very, very nice fit and finish, a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, a very nice engraving on the case back. I mean, it was a lot of value you were getting for your money. So it was one of my favorite watches, if not my favorite watch of 2018, made by any micro brand. Now, obviously, because of that, I have high expectations from this watch. I know that they had a bit of an issue with the inner bezel. However, that was corrected. This is a review unit that was sent to me very graciously by Richard Le Grand, and I was supposed to get one 2 months ago. However, he didn't want to send out any units for review until the problem had been fixed, and effectively it was. So once again, it's very good to see these companies, small micro brands, taking responsibility for their mistakes or for the manufacturer's mistakes and fixing them in a timely manner, as they effectively did. Presentation box, very nice, with a cushioned top. This also includes a 2-year warranty, which once again, very nice considering that most micro brands only offer 1 year, so it shows that they have confidence in the quality of their pieces. Now, looking at this watch, obviously it's not your normal diver, sub $300 diver from a micro brand. It is quite different to most of the other micro brand diver watches that I have seen over the past couple of years, especially obviously because of that inner bezel, which is the first thing that you'll notice. Obviously an inner bezel being something that I don't necessarily prefer over the standard one. However, I think it's definitely good to have some variation in my collection, so this is going to be definitely a bit of variation to my line of pretty boring divers that I currently have. Now, one of the main things that I like about this watch is that even though it is a 42mm case diameter, it doesn't look like a 42mm, and it doesn't wear like a 42mm. I mean, honestly, I thought it was 40mm. When I saw 42, I didn't really believe it, because I compared it, for example, to another watch I'm going to be reviewing tomorrow, which is the Lilienthal Berlin Zeitgeist Automatic, which is 42.5, and it looks huge next to this watch. I mean, it just looks huge. So they have done a very good job at keeping the proportions of this watch, especially with those curved edges of the case back, which make it fit very nicely, very tightly on your wrist. So once again, I really like the size of this watch. I think it plays perfectly well, whether it be for casual situations or a bit more formal, more elegant situations, in which you could even be wearing a suit in this piece, as long as you change the strap. Which, once again, I mean, I think the strap on a watch, as I've said in previous reviews, isn't important at all, because you can just swap it out at the end of the day. But I don't understand why they would put such a plain, boring, dull looking strap on such a interesting, such a cool watch. I mean, look at how much of a difference is made by just putting a NATO strap. I mean, it doesn't even really have to match the color scheme, as this one doesn't. It'd match it more if the inner stripe was red. However, it just completely livens up this watch, which is something that I think this strap does not do. Now, the case backs on these watches, both on the Odyssey Mark II and this one, are gorgeous case backs with 3D stamping, with that high polished logo of the ship. I mean, it's just beautiful. I mean, many times you see micro brands producing watches and they put no attention whatsoever into the case back, because they try to cut costs as much as possible. Likewise, many companies do the same by not giving a nice packaging. They just throw it in a box to avoid having to spend a couple of dollars to be able to put a nicer package, a presentation box together. I really like these highly polished edges. These give a bit of separation between the case, because the rest of the case is just brushed metal. But I think that these polished edges, both at the top and bottom, I think they really add a bit of elegance, a bit of a refinement to this piece. The Sapphire Crystal, as you can see, is heavily domed at the edges. Very, very nice Sapphire Crystal. It's the anti-reflective coating is a bit hit and miss. It depends on the light source. I mean, outdoors the legibility is perfectly fine, but sometimes when the light hits it, it becomes a bit hazy. However, that is just because of the dome in the Sapphire Crystal, which is always going to capture light on the edges and kind of disperse it across the face of the watch, making it look a bit blurry, a bit hazy. But it's not a problem whatsoever in terms of legibility. This is a very legible watch. Now, in terms of the logo, we all remember what happened with Christopher Ward when they went from their old logo to the new one, and all the criticism they got, including by myself. I personally think the new logo is horrible. However, Richard Le Grand did the opposite. They took the Richard Le Grand logo, which had become a bit of a mockery online because of Richard Le Grand and the implications, what it could also mean if you wanted it to, and they turned it into just RLG, and I think it looks much better. I think they did a very good job by doing that bit of rebranding into making it look a bit more sophisticated, a bit fancier than the Richard Le Grand brand name. As you can see there, the comparison between the two. I personally really like the minimalism of this logo with just the RLG. And once again, I mean, as you see, you have a very well put together piece. I really like the fact that both crowns are on the right hand side. This is kind of going against the grain of watches such as the Omega Seamaster or Planet Ocean, and they're keeping it both on one side to keep it clean on the other. Obviously the top crown is to be able to use the inner bezel, which once again, this time around, it has no problems whatsoever. The action and the rotation of it is perfectly smooth, perfectly fine. And then the crown at the bottom is obviously to be able to adjust the time. One of the things that I really like about this watch is that they didn't decide to add a calendar. I think a date calendar would have thrown this design off completely. I think the face is a bit too pinched in to be able to have space for a date, so I'm happy that they didn't include that. And I mean, overall, the quality is there. The same kind of quality is probably being elevated compared to the Odyssey Mark II. The value is there, $250, Seiko NH35 movement, Sapphire Crystal, very good fit and finish. This is a very easy watch to recommend. It's definitely staying in my collection, definitely a keeper, and definitely one that you should have your eye open for. Until the next time, guys, peace.